In Serbia, football doesn't just fill stadiums. It's toppled governments, sparked wars, and claimed lives. In Belgrade, the capital, the city is divided by one thing above all else: Red Star or Partizan. I came here to find out what's behind one of the fiercest rivalries in world football. From diehard fans to shady politics and student protests, this is more than just a match. This is Belgrade's eternal derby.
This is the most passionate game in Serbian football, one of the most passionate in the region and one of the most passionate in the world.
Belgrade has been bombed, torn by civil wars, and locked under authoritarian rule. But still, it pulses with life and character. The city is beautiful. Split by the Danube River, Belgrade straddles the line between the global East and West, shaped by both Turkish and Roman empires. But the country's deep and beautiful history is scarred by violence and division. While Serbia is no longer at war, the city is still split by a chasm. Red Star Belgrade, locally known as Crvena Zvezda, and Partizan, the two biggest clubs in the country. They both rose from the ashes of World War II. Partizan, linked to the resistance force that freed Yugoslavia from Nazi annexation, under the command of Josip Tito, and Red Star, a symbol of communism, founded by the Anti-Fascist Youth League. When Yugoslavian founder Tito died in 1980, the fragile unity he maintained quickly began to deteriorate. Economic turmoil, ethnic tensions, and global sanctions amidst the U.S. war on communism sparked a violent ultras culture that rapidly intertwined with organized crime. Red Star's Delije and Partizan's Grobari emerged, massive, highly organized groups of young extremists with deep ties into Serbian politics and the criminal underworld. They now hold great power and influence throughout every level of Serbian society. To understand better how politics, ultras, and violence intersect, I spoke with an expert on the subject, Professor Marija Joric.
Football is the most important thing in the world, also in Serbia and in the Balkans. But there is, if you ask me, something specific among football in Serbia and Western Balkans. We have this connection between football and politics, and I call this phenomena in my researches, in my papers and books, politicization of hooliganism. What it means that hooligans are usually instrument of politics, and sometimes it's a little bit scary and dangerous because you have a very powerful organization.
What was one of the main drivers that caused such a rapid change from a very communist and united Yugoslavia to what we see now, which is a very separated, very nationalist Balkan states?
Our football started during the 80s, but I would say that some kind of crescendo or dominance of hooliganism in ex-Yugoslavia. A famous football match between Dinamo and Red Star, and in my opinion, during this game you could see a lot of vox populi messages, a lot of nationalism, and my opinion is that a war in ex-Yugoslavia and disintegration in Yugoslavia started during this match.
One criminal, Željko Ražnatović Arkan, international criminal who was sentenced for armed robberies abroad, was taken back to Serbia and put as the leader of the most dominant at the time football fan group, and that is Red Star Belgrade.
Željko Ražnatović, better known as Arkan, a famous criminal who led the Delije to the notorious riot during the Red Star vs. Dinamo Zagreb match on May 13, 1990, sparking a 5-year war and leading to the dissolution of Yugoslavia.
One nationalism brings another nationalism.
football fans were used by the political elite to promote national divide and even conflict, if you want. Arkan organized these football fan groups into a paramilitary formation.
Infamously referred to as Arkan's Tigers. He committed war crimes and atrocities on behalf of the Serbian government. This marked the beginning of a dark and powerful partnership between Serbian politicians, football hooligans, and organized crime.
Remained influential even after the war. He was a member of Serbian parliament. He ran another football club, which incidentally, the only football club that ever took a title apart from Red Star or Partizan was run by Arkan. The talk was that, if you're a referee, you can't afford to let anyone else win.
Arkan's legacy cast a long shadow over Serbian football. The violence and division he forged have only intensified over the decades, solidifying Red Star versus Partizan as Europe's fiercest and most explosive rivalry.
Politics, economics, social things, cultural things, everything is mixed in that derby.
There is something specific in hooliganism and football, because there are so many emotions when it comes to men. And here in the Balkans, men like to be tough without emotions. But pay attention, during a football game, they are ready to open emotions. They're ready to cry, to hug each other, to celebrate. So I think that football is not just a game. Football is some kind of magic.
Game day in Belgrade feels like stepping into a pressure cooker. Riot police line the streets. The energy feels more like going to war than a football match. In Serbia, they say, no pyro, no party. The stadium is practically on fire from the opening whistle, and these fans live up to their reputation as some of the best in the world. The match ended in a 3-3 draw, but in Belgrade, the score is almost a footnote. The real battle is happening in the stands, as the Delije and Grobari battle for supremacy. Their factions, intertwined with Serbia's organized crime syndicates, fight even amongst themselves for a section of seats in the stands, which represent turf, trafficking routes, and street power far beyond the walls of the stadium.
And nowadays, hooligans are involved in so many areas in society. We have nowadays, I would say, one triangle. One side, hooligans as very important element. The second side, certain individuals from high level of politics involved in this phenomena. And the third element is organized crime.
Hooligans and ultras influencing politics, and is there a way around that and to break that structure, or is it so ingrained in the society now that there's so much power being controlled by these three groups, criminals, ultras, and politics, that there's no one to break the cycle?
Yes, who will break the cycle? This is a good question. And who is so powerful to do this? One institution is not able to do this.
No single force can break the cycle alone. but a united public might stand a chance. On November 1st, a poorly built train station in Novi Sad collapsed, killing 15 people and exposing high levels of corruption. For many Serbians, this was the final straw. Thousands of students took to the streets in protest, demanding an end to government corruption. In the months since, nothing has changed, but protests have only grown and tensions have risen. Nearly 1 million people marched on the capital, but the government hasn't budged, opting to choose repression over reform. The conflict reached a head when protesters were attacked by a sonic weapon. With no aid in sight from Europe or the global West, this looks to be an uphill battle for Serbians in their fight against corruption. With such deep division, I wonder if Serbs could set aside their differences to unite against their corrupt government. Walking Belgrade's streets, it's impossible not to notice the murals and graffiti everywhere. After the Novi Sad tragedy, students adopted the symbol of a bloodied red hand, a powerful message now painted across the city to remind the world of the government's responsibility for the lives lost in the tragedy. In response, the government mocked protesters with a graffiti of their own, a red middle finger. To gain a deeper understanding of the role of street art in the city, I visited Alexandra in her studio. She's a muralist who's been an icon of the local street scene here for over a decade, leading social movements through her work.
Can you imagine how insane that is? You have what happened in Novi Sad as a culmination of corruption, and people died, and that's their response. Middle finger, really? I think what happens in Serbia, I think it's even unimaginable for us that we live it every day, and every day you see something, you're like, they went completely mad.
I think social change is always seen so clearly through the lens of art because there's very little censorship in art, and that's one of the beautiful things about it. There's been some really dramatic things happening with student protests recently. How are artists and how are you becoming part of that movement?
So I don't know, Belgrade is some kind of you can see the petri dish of whoever wants to do anything on walls. You can see the state of mind of our citizens through what happens on the wall. Somehow Serbian people got used to all this crazy stuff. Yeah. But this is not normal. It's not normal for a very long time. And I think this is our chance to actually change something. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to, just overnight, deal with everything. But at least something changed. And that whatever happens, that you cannot reverse that.
There's a lot of hooliganism and ultras. Their street symbols are everywhere around Belgrade. How does that dynamic play out with the artists, and what do they use that for?
Okay, from one side, it's marking of a territory. I can understand that. But on the other side, it's just their propaganda. So I think they kind of figured that if they're aggressively pushing that, all of a sudden you have it everywhere. And then people think that they are the majority, and they're not, and we all know that it's not about the football anymore. They're just using it to do their own dirty work,
For the government.
For whoever, I think pays the biggest quote. At the same time, I think there is a lot of people who are willing to do this type of stuff for, I don't know if it's about money or if it's about influence, if it's about power, it's insane. So that's just one fragment of what happens on the street, and you can see how public space is actually a place of battle.
To get a feel for everyday life in Belgrade, I stopped by a local kafana. Traditional home-style cooking and strong rakia are at the heart of Serbian hospitality. This kafana, however, is unique. It stands as a monument to the memory of communist Yugoslavia. Every corner of the restaurant is a tribute to a piece of communist history.
And you can see every wall is gathered with the pictures of some period or some things that happened in former Yugoslavia.
Tell us about like kafanas in Serbia a little bit and like why they're important to the culture.
First of all, kafana is the place of gathering in Serbia from like 500 years ago when we were under Turkish rule. It was a place where people could meet and talk about daily stuff. And of course, it grew into something bigger. It has great energy and of course, great food, great parties. Yeah, rakia is the biggest part of Serbian life. Yeah, the thing that everything connects is rakia.
Rakia
connects
Serbia.
Rakia is a brandy made of different fruits, but most popular in Serbia is plum rakia. Like every household has their own rakia they make, and it is like a tradition that is passed from father to son, and they guard that recipe as a family tradition.
Tell us a little bit about the food here, because like for me this felt like grandmother's cooking. Do a lot of people who come here use this as almost a second home or a place of comfort?
Yeah, that's the thing we're trying to do here, to make it feel like you're at home. The food is comfort food for Serbian people. They like it here because it is always warm, it is fresh, and it's like grandma made it. So a lot of people that come here are Red Star fans, and this part of Belgrade is also Red Star fans, so you can see the majority of people coming here. They come here before the game and they used to drink here and go to the game. So there is Red Star and Partizan. Also, if you're for current government or against them, we student led protests. So it is black and white in Serbia, unfortunately, but that's the current situation we are in.
Football here also reveals its beauty far from politics and violence. I met with Vasa, co-founder of Football Codex, a designer who's blending style with football culture. His project spans Serbia's football pyramid, from some of the biggest clubs in Serbia to FK Milankovic, a proud community-driven team in the so-called Concrete League, the lowest rung of Serbian football, where pride and passion still rule the game.
It's such like a global market around football fashion, and I think that as well as just a huge history around it. What inspired you to get into like football related fashion? Because I think it's what you're doing is so unique.
We had like this idea to come up with artistic approach to design in football, in sports generally, but mostly based on football, about history of football or any specific moment or player or the club, and everything that goes around the culture. So we are part of the story here, and it's going pretty well. It's like a small community. Basically, two of us are, working as designers, like graphic design is our call, to show the world what we can do, what we are able to with our ideas, to mix all the things and all the people that are part of this culture.
I mean, you guys have already done so much, from working with the entire football pyramid of Serbia, from the Concrete League to some of the teams in the higher leagues.
We are working with this Miljakovac football club. It's part of our first, so to say, collaboration with some lower league local club, which is really interesting because they made their own community, and I think it's going pretty well. I think that is exactly the thing that should happen, so people get more close to the local clubs and local stories and local football communities.
Today is game day for FK Milankovic, so Vasa invited us to watch them debut their new kits. On our way to the match, we stopped for some cevapi, Serbia's national dish, grilled mincemeat paired with kaimak, raw onions, and fresh pita, always accompanied with beer and rakia. Watching Milankovic is a reminder of football's pure joy. The club is founded in community and local pride. After the match, my cameraman Dimi invited me to train with his local team, Milinkovic's rivals. Even at a casual session, football here is fierce, physical, and tactical, played on 1 to 2 touches. In Serbia, football is more than a game. It's a stage for power, protest, and raw emotion.
I really do have like positive, like thinking a positive prospect, because if we do something now, generation that comes after us won't have to do it. So it's on us now to just push that limit.
You can see that messages throughout football are very powerful.
The derby might have ended 3-3, but the greater struggle continues beyond the stadium's walls, in the streets and in the hearts of those fighting corruption. For these clubs and their fans, football defines the city's identity, spilling into every aspect of life. And maybe the sport that started a war 35 years ago will have the power to this time unify a nation against injustice. This is more than football. This is Belgrade's eternal derby, and this is the global game.